Hello, everyone. I'm Preeti Bale, an operations leader with over 2 decades of experience in telecom, e-commerce, and digital transformation. I've been initially in sales and then service delivery and operations. I've scaled teams, built processes from scratch, and enabled organizations to grow with technology. Across these roles, first off, I've seen that success at senior level isn't just about technical expertise. It's about business acumen, ability to see the whole brand, connect the dots, and make decisions that drive sustainable growth. Beyond work, I draw inspiration from professionals, especially the women around me, who taught me resilience and perspective, qualities that shape how I coach leaders. So here we are. Welcome to this session on business acumen. Now, honestly, this is probably one of the most important sessions in your CXO journey. And very shortly, you may actually agree with me when I say this. Technical expertise may have someone grow to their career, but business acumen is what helps leader enter boardroom. Before we begin, let me ask you something simple. When you hear the word business acumen, what comes to your mind? Go ahead and type in chat. Just 2 to 5 words. Interesting. Some of you are saying strategy, some finance, decision making, growth mindset, customer, market understanding, and honestly, all of these are correct. But let us simplify business acumen in the simplest possible way. Business acumen is understanding how a company operates, makes money, and competes in the market. That's it. OMC. Operates, makes money, competes in the market. Can everyone type OMC in the chat? Perfect. If you remember just one thing from today's session, remember OMC, because every strong business decision ultimately connects back to these three things. Now, let me ask you another question. How many of you believe technical expertise alone can make someone a CX? Type yes or no. Yeah. And this is where most professionals experience a shift in thinking. Technical expertise must have got you here, but CXO level leadership requires something more bigger, understanding the business as a whole. At senior leadership level, people are not evaluating you only on how well you run your business, your department. They evaluate how well you understand the organization, the market, the customer, the technology, finance, strategy, and the long term direction. This is the shift from the functional excellence to business leadership. And to understand this better, let me begin with a short story many of you will immediately connect with. So, do you remember which mobile brand completely dominated the market before smartphones became the mainstream? Way earlier when mobiles started. Yeah, go ahead and type the brand in chat. Yeah, one big brand that dominated the whole market. Yes, Nokia. Almost everyone has had a Nokia phone at some point. It was trusted, reliable, and durable, and dominant across global markets. If I remember right, about 45% of the market was of Nokia. At one point, Nokia controlled almost half the mobile market worldwide. Now, here's the real question. What happened? How did such a powerful company lose its leadership position? This is where business acumen becomes extremely important. Nokia focused heavily on hardware. Meanwhile, companies like Apple, Google were quietly building ecosystems. By ecosystems, I mean software, applications, user experience, platform, and then came iPhones in 2007. And suddenly, the rules of the industry changed. The lesson here is very powerful. Market leadership today does not guarantee survival tomorrow. Let me ask you something. If you were leading Nokia in 2007, what would you have focused on first? Would it have been hardware, software, applications, customer experience, partnerships, or innovations? Type your thoughts in chat. Yeah, you can pick any hardware, software, application, customer experience, partnership, or innovations. Excellent. Excellent responses. Yeah, because this is exactly what business acumen is about, seeing shifts before they become threats. Now, let's move to another fascinating story. We all know Netflix, right? What most people binge watch. A quick question for everyone. Did Netflix originally begin as streaming or as a DVD rental or as a TV production? Which one? Type A, B, C. Which one do you think that Netflix started with? Streaming, that it does currently, or DVD rental, or C, television production? The correct answer is it started off as a DVD rental. And this is when strategic thinking becomes interesting. At that time, there was a big brand called Blockbuster, which was an industry giant. Netflix was a tiny company in comparison. In fact, Netflix was once offered to Blockbuster. It offered itself to Blockbuster for around $50 million, and Blockbuster rejected the deal. Can you imagine that today Blockbuster is nowhere? But Netflix saw something others did not. They anticipated the shift towards digital consumption before the market fully moved there. Do you know what they did? They invested in streaming when internet infrastructure was still developing and adopting, and it was uncertain. It required vision, it required risk taking, and most importantly, it required strategic foresight. So let me ask all of you, sorry, what do you think made Netflix successful? Type me one word or a phrase. Was it vision? Was it innovation? Was it technology? Customer understanding? Timing? Which one was it? Yeah, type in the chat. Vision, innovation, technology, customer understanding, or the timing? Excellent answers. Because strong business leaders do not simply react to disruption, they anticipate it. Now, let's talk about another area that most professionals avoid: finance. Let me ask honestly, how many of you feel finance is not your strongest area? Type me in chat. Yeah, me, wonderful. You're definitely not alone. But here is an important truth for aspiring CXOs. Finance is the language of credibility. At leadership level, leaders must understand very simple things. These are very simple things, which is profit and loss statement, balance sheets, cash flows, ROI, which is return on investment, and business trade-offs. Not because they are accountants, but because every major decision eventually impacts money, growth, cost, or value creation? Can you all type in the chat P&L, profit and loss statement, BS, balance sheet, CF, cash flow, P&L, BS, cash flow, CF, perfect. Now let's connect this to Apple. That's the best brand I can think of to give you an example on how they very well manage their finance. Many companies generate profits, but Apple did something totally different, totally unique. They built massive cash reserves. Why? Because strong financial management gives organizations the freedom to innovate boldly. Apple could invest heavily in products like the iPhone because they had financial strength and operational discipline. They were not surviving quarter to quarter. They had the confidence and flexibility for long-term bets. So let me ask you one more thing. What do you think is most dangerous for a business? Lack of innovation or lack of financial discipline? You can type in the chat, lack of innovation or lack of financial discipline. Interesting perspective. And the reality is business needs both vision and discipline together. Now let's move to customer and market orientation. When you hear the phrase customer obsession, which company comes to your mind first? Yeah? Which brand comes to your mind? Most people immediately say Amazon. And that is not accidental because Amazon is known for it. Amazon built its culture around customer convenience. One click ordering, personalized recommendation, prime delivery, seamless return. We experience all that put together now, right? Yeah, that's what it perceived and executed. Everything was designed around reducing friction for the customer. Now think about your own organization for a moment. What is the one thing customers repeatedly complain about in your industry? Type one point in chat. Yeah. What is the one thing customers repeatedly complain about in your respective industries? Yeah, very insightful. Okay, okay. Because customer-centric organizations grow differently. They build trust, loyalty, and long-term values. Now let's talk about collaboration. Quick question. How many of you worked in an organization where department function in silos? All by themselves. They function within their own teams, within their own departments. Almost everyone has experienced this. And this is exactly why cross-functional collaboration becomes critical for leadership roles. CXOs cannot think department first. They must think enterprise first. Toyota became globally respected because it created systems where engineering, operations, suppliers, employees worked in alignment. Let's learn one important thing from Toyota production system. It's called Jidoka. Can everyone type Jidoka in chat? Wonderful. Yeah, it's Jidoka. Jidoka. Yeah. Excuse me. It means automation with human intelligence. Jidoka means automation with human intelligence. Not just speed, but quality and continuous improvement. Now let's come to technology. Today, technology is no longer a support function. Technology is strategy. Let me ask you honestly, how many of you believe AI will completely reshape leadership and business over the next 5 years? Type AI in chat. Yeah, the question is, how many of you believe AI will completely reshape leadership and business over the next 5 years? Yeah, type AI. Exactly. Organizations today are being transformed by AI. Automation, analysis, cloud, digital ecosystem, and predictive intelligence. Microsoft transformed itself through Azure. Amazon transformed through AWS. Netflix transformed through data and algorithms. And the companies that succeeded did not just adopt technology, they became technology driven business. And this is why digital fluency is no longer optional for leaders. Now, let's move beyond business model and talk about leadership itself. In your opinion, what makes people trust a leader? Type one word in the chat. In your opinion, what makes people trust a leader? Empathy, integrity, clarity, vision, consistency. And this is where leadership acumen becomes critical. Leaders like Indra Nooyi become respected not only because of business performance, but because they balanced performance with purpose, growth with empathy, and strategy with people development. Finally, let's talk about governance and ethics, which means more long-term, short-term profits or long-term trust. Type profit or trust. What matters more? Long-term, short-term profits or long-term trust? Profit or trust? And this is where companies like Volkswagen and Patagonia give us two very different lessons. Because Patagonia built sustainability and purpose into its business model and strengthened long-term credibility. The lesson is simple. Governance and ethics are not compliance activities. They are strategic assets. So as we close the session today, remember this. Leaders who rise to director, VP, CXO level are not limited by their function. They understand the whole business. They think strategically. They understand finance. They anticipate change. They collaborate across functions. They understand technology. They lead people effectively and they protect long-term trust. That is what transforms professionals from managers into an enterprise leader. And that transformation is the true purpose of business acumen. Thank you.